Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flowchart Podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build a billion-dollar business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. You know, I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. Please share and enjoy. Hey, we are back, and this is another solo episode. It's one of these, initial episodes I'm putting out here, and it's December 2022, and I'm rounding out the end of this year with some solo episodes of different insights and things that have been going on the last 2 months and things that I've reframed and mentors I've learned from, what I've been studying, different tools I've created, and in this episode, I thought it would be a perfect time to really break down what the meaning is behind Hustle and Flowchart as I see it. And I'm going to do that by deconstructing the intro that I've made for this podcast. Because believe it or not, I took a lot of time into writing this thing and what's actually in there, what is said, what was cut. I wrote it and rewrote it many times by hand on the computer. I've said it a ton of times. I have a lot of recordings. And this is what made the cut. You just heard it, actually. And what I want to do in this episode is to break down the phrases and why they're in there and why, especially right now, this resonates with me. And I feel like with a lot of folks in general in business as an entrepreneur, even if you're a part-time entrepreneur and you have a full-time job, you're grinding at night or you're Ubering or you're doing whatever, where you have more control over basically your time, but you're working extra for the money, or you're a business owner that is been grinding and maybe you're full-time business owner, maybe you work a ton, or maybe I don't know, there's just something that you're chasing more from your business, but also at the bigger sense, you're trying to create a better life for yourself and you don't want to just grind, hustle. I think there's a lot of that culture out there right now. So this podcast and really this whole podcast in general, not just this episode, but yeah, this podcast, I want to highlight the different concepts that I've learned and different things I've learned from mentors and principles and essentially put them in these concise solo episodes that you can take and noodle on and you can practice yourself and see if they benefit you, with the intention that you're going to get more from your life in general than grinding it out and all that stuff. And then bringing on different mentors, like different guests, that is, and friends and mentors. So I felt like it'd be a good time to deconstruct this intro that I made and talk about what the meaning is behind all this stuff. I feel like it's really a good time right now in this world. And as entrepreneurs, if you're a part-timer or full-timer, it really doesn't matter. I feel like everyone is ramped up. There's a lot going on in the world. There's uncertainty. The economy is doing its thing. People are losing their jobs. Some people are doing great, though. It could be, it's interesting times. But the point is, I feel like everything is a little bit more ramped up. Everything's going faster. And this show, my idea is to talk about the different things that are happening that are relevant here, and then provide the tools and the mentorship, the mindset, the reframes that are needed to do the best you can in this world through your business, but also have a great life at the same time. So what I'm going to do is break down the intro you just heard. Maybe I'll just play it one more time just so it's fresh in your mind. And then I'm going to kind of go phrase by phrase and then talk about some things that will probably give you some nice aha moments to noodle on and then think about a little further. So here we go. Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flowchart Podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build a billion-dollar business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. Please share and enjoy. All right, so the very first line is, welcome to the Hustle and Flowchart Podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. Now, that phrase, it's obviously welcome to the show, yada, 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 but this is where we talk about building businesses. We give you the freedom and the fuel for your life. This was a big thing for me because I wasn't feeling really energized from a lot of my work. I might have been energized in the work, but then my life outside of work was not so energized, or it wasn't so present. I wasn't feeling connected. And a lot of 2022 has been that way for me. And I know the times where I've just not been fully committed to the business, or there's a lot of friction, or there's uncertainty, maybe for whatever reason, the business ain't doing great, or there's friction in my life, outside of business as well. This kind of applies to both sides, not just business, of course. That's not a feeling of freedom, and that's not going to give you fuel to improve your business or improve your relationships and have a happier life. So I want to build businesses, and I want to talk about here in this show, building businesses that give you that fuel, but also the freedom. So you're not feeling like you're confined or you're constrained by certain things in your business or even in your life. And these principles, these things that we'll talk about here, ideally are going to make you more present. They're going to make you more connected and happier to folks, and your business should grow. You should feel better and more energized. So that's kind of that first line and that meaning there. Next line is this one. I'm not here to help you build a billion-dollar business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you. Now, I wanted to put that in there because I'm not promising, and I definitely don't have the experience of building a billion-dollar business. The thing is, I really don't have a desire to do that. I don't have the drive. So I'm not seeking out that kind of information or those types of people, although I do find them interesting because I think there's a lot we can learn from folks like Bezos and Buffett and Musk, all the interesting folks that build these massive businesses and have that kind of scale. It's interesting. It's just not something that I'm going to do. So you're not going to get a lot of those strategies here. So I wanted to just point out, as a listener, as someone who is dedicating their time to a podcast, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. If you're in it to build $1 billion, if you're already making millions of bucks and you feel like you have this down, then this is probably not the best show for you. And I want to call that out. I'm talking to my people. I want to get narrow. It's just going to help everyone and save a lot of time, of course. What I said here is, I want to help create businesses with systems that work for you. What I'm talking about there is optionality. And what that really boils down to is, I want to have people, the tools, the things in my business. These are the systems that help, the operations essentially, that can do what needs to get done. And that doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. I am part of that system. I want to make sure that's working for me, that there's a lot of leverage. The inputs that are going into this business are lesser than the outputs that are coming out. There is an exponential factor to anything I'm doing in business. I want to make sure that's always the case. And I say optionality because we're not going to feel this constraint. We have the ability to do what we need to do, and we know that the systems are there to give us a lot of the buffer, takes a lot of friction off. And optionality, that just gives you better options for life. That's something Nick Peterson really dives into. I want to give him a shout out. Optionality, that whole concept, just having the ability for options and not feeling the constraint in things is huge. It does a lot for your mind. It creates these open loops, and there's a whole thing you do with open loops and not rushing into things. So Nick, that's awesome advice, and definitely go check out Nick and everything he does. But the whole thing here is, this phrase is, it's not all about the money. Personally, I'm in it to get more out of life. It's more like, I want to get the most with life. I want to be where life is right now and not have this need to get consumed or stressed or anxious about the business or these projects or whatever is going on. I want to make sure that what we're doing here, it's helping me navigate the life I really want to live. And if there's sacrifices that I got to do, it's not all about the money. It's more getting with life, getting the most with life. So that's where, I'm all about the leverage, and rather than the $1 billion business scale thing, because that requires a whole nother way of living that I'm not personally interested in. All right, the next line is, so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. And this one, again, it's not all about the money. I'm in it rather for the freedom. I want to make sure I have that freedom. So I want that freedom, and the freedom is the optionality like I was talking before. It's not all about the money, but I want to make sure that I'm always going to have enough. I'm not going to feel constrained by not having enough money or not having the ability to make more money. If I want to go ham and just go big, then okay, then I know that there's things in business I can do to cover whatever I want. And I could do this by just working part-time. I don't feel like I'm going to have to, slave myself over my business. I'm going to do it in a way that's going to, again, give me that exponential factor, the leverage that I want. And it gives me the freedom. It gives me options. And there's a cool podcast we did, an episode Matt and I did with James Altucher. I think it was like a couple years back now. I forget the exact title, but I'm going to link it. And it's, if you just look up James Altucher, so he breaks down how you can essentially live the life of a multi-millionaire or a billionaire by just making a lot less money, like six figures. So that's a really good episode. Is James Altucher is that you don't need to have these crazy amounts of money. You just need to have enough and then structure the life you want. And obviously you need to have the freedom to live that life, that whole, the open time and space that you've allowed yourself to live. All right. So the next line is, I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experience and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. So back in the day, I was a lot more of a yes kind of guy, like more, stack it on. I can handle this. No big deal. Oh crap. That would make me like staying up really late at night. Not responding to people or just not following through in things that I knew that I totally could do, but I just, for whatever reason, it wasn't happening. I was getting busy with a lot of non-essential things. And for me, I wanted to help a lot of folks. If I knew that I can help them out, I would overcommit. There was a lot of that stuff. So it was a lot of non-disciplined thinking, a lot of time wasting. So that was me in hustle mode. And I would wager that a lot of folks, maybe that's you, that feels like you have to grind, that there is this never-ending to-do list, that you feel like you're swamped. I don't know, you just feel like you can't get out of that mode. And maybe you have some of these similar traits, or maybe there's some things in your personality that you're just ignoring, maybe not prioritizing or looking after your time. You're not tracking your time. I know when I've tracked my time and actually really noted every single bit of what I'm doing, like every task and how long it takes, you can do it in 15-minute increments. Or you can even, what I like to do is use a Pomodoro, like every 25-minute kind of thing, and then track down what I'm doing. It's pretty wild how prioritized that'll get you going. And then it's creating some discipline. And for me, the last 2 months, there's been a lot of different disciplined things that I'm doing for myself to really keep me more disciplined. I mean, it goes down to like having enough sleep. I have an an Apple Watch now, so it has a lot of cool tracking things. And I'm always looking at my sleep, and I've been sleeping more. It's still not enough, but I know that's just going to reap a lot of benefits. And, there's things like exercise is massive for me. Like I was very inconsistent with my workouts, even though I was just doing like 3 days a week. I would trail off and just make excuses or get busy, or just wake up late, maybe sleeping in because I stayed up too late, that kind of thing. And then the day gets away. Basically, now I am disciplined. I'm doing a lot more consistent things to keep me in a groove. So all this goes back to that chronic hustle mode kind of guy. I'm not like that anymore. And whenever that feeling of the grind or I got to move faster comes up, it feels bad in my body. Like I can literally feel my body get tenser or get a little bit more anxious or nervous. That's just me pushing a little too hard or overcommitting to myself. So I would just challenge you to look at what you're doing in your day-to-day life and figure out how to maybe reframe some of that stuff if you feel like it's a little out of alignment with what you're trying to get done there. So going into the last couple lines here is, I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger. So that's what I'm going to do for you here on this show. I think that's pretty obvious. And I'm super excited because this Hustle and Flowchart podcast will be ideally it's going to be 2 times a week, maybe even more of like a daily show. I'm toying with that. This episode, it's starting to become a little easier to record these things. So there's going to be a mix of a good amount of solo episodes and then guest episodes. And that will be a rotating a whole bunch of people coming on, but I'm going to bring a bunch of friends and probably have a lot of recurring guests. I'll be gauging what you guys are loving and what you want to hear more of, and then bringing those types of folks on the show. So wrapping up this, please share and enjoy. That's how I wrap it up, a little call to action. I really hope you do. And the whole point here is this hustle culture, the feel that there's more, need to have more, chasing that almighty dollar or whatever that thing is. Maybe it's an ego play. I mean, shoot, I was super honest with myself. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to do, and being on the forefront of tech, like with Hard Fork Gaming and that whole break I had to make with Matt in business, there was a lot of stuff. There's a lot of ego wrapped up in that. So the ego is very tough to get through. Like it stops a lot of us from doing the real thing we should be doing. And I think another is getting a life. Honestly, a lot of business owners don't have this life outside of a business, or maybe they mask their passions, their true passions. They put it into their business maybe a little bit too much. I think there's a lot to be said that finding other passions and things out of business is a big thing. So that's a concept I've been diving into more so, calling it getting a life. But I think a lot of us need to get a life and allow us to see business and what we're doing for that dollar in a different way, and in allowing to get more out of life, and being honest with ourselves with what we want to do. And if we're not lying to ourselves to work too much for, the wrong direction in life that we want to go, or that is going because of our actions. So sharing this episode is definitely going to help others do good, and of course they're going to do good for others. Ideally, let's start a movement. All right, that's all I can ask for, huh? All right, thanks for listening, and I appreciate you. I'll be back with another solo episode coming up soon. Until next time, bye-bye. All right, that's what I got for you today. And remember, it's not all about living to work. It's all about working to live, if you need to do the work. But work can be fun, and it should be fueling for your life. So if you enjoyed what you just heard, if you got some nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or you're just noodling on right now, please go tell others. The way that people find this show and how you can help others get their aha moments is through word of mouth. So if it is telling your friend, telling your family, sending an email to your list, writing a review, or whatever it might be, everything helps. So thank you so much for listening to the Hustle and Flowchart Podcast, and I will see you next time.